Hi everyone, welcome to Arts Career Week. This is our last event of the week, so pretty excited about that. And I'm so excited to have Jeremy with us today. He's an award-winning actor who's joining us from New York City. He's worked on TV shows like Star Trek Discovery, The Expanse, Murdoch Mysteries, Taken, and he has also had a lot of Broadway experience. Right now, he's writing his first short film, and he's also using the power of social media to build his own brand. So he's using Instagram and TikTok for that. Pretty excited to have Jeremy here. So Jeremy, just thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited to hear what it is like to be an actor in today's landscape, in today's evolving, changing landscape.
Well, thank you for having me. This is so nice to be able to speak to you and to, speak to everybody at Dartmouth. I was very, very honored to be asked.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for just joining us. So I guess we're gonna start by learning a little bit about your background. Can you tell us how you got started in the acting business?
Sure. I think when I was young growing up, I didn't grow up in a family of creative people. So this wasn't creativity, the performing arts, all of that really wasn't in my world
Mhm.
as a kid. So I kind of got into this through music, really. I joined a choir when I was in like elementary school. And then, of course, that led to auditioning for a school musical when I was in the seventh grade. And that was the first time I did any acting. And then, I kind of got the bug and continued doing that. So, school shows, and then by the time I think when I was 16 years old, 16, yeah, when I was 16, I did a show. I grew up in Canada. So the city Edmonton is one of the bigger cities in the province I grew up in. And there was a theater there that did a summer program for high school students. And so I went up for 2 years. And that's when I learned what it was like. That program was focused on here's what it's like to work as a professional. This is what the
Right.
schedule's like. This is what the expectations are. And that really helped me answer the question of like, is this something that I want to do professionally for the rest of my life?
And so, do you advise that every aspiring actor does go through this kind of a coaching, or can some people just like also wing it if they want, or is it advisable to actually go through that kind of a training?
Yeah, I think it's vital to get. But if you're in university and you're getting conservatory level kind of training,
Mhm.
you're probably in that grind and you probably understand that grind. Um, I think for young people, it can be a bit of a shock working those long days, 6 days a week, especially if you're talking about theater.
Right.
Um, Rehearsing a show, and even in America, sometimes it's shorter. Sometimes you only have a week to learn, a giant musical or a massive play. Um, and that's really tough. That really requires a lot. So I do think it's vital that you learn that
Mhm.
you step foot um, into that space in a safe way.
Right.
So I'm very fortunate that I had that to be able to make those mistakes and learn just what that is.
Mhm. Mhm. So can you also tell us a little bit about your first acting gig that you got? I know that, like you said, you started off really early. So considering, you also got that training, you were auditioning. Yeah. What was that like getting your first gig, and what was it?
Okay, so I'll go first.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in junior high school,
Oh,
it
wow. Okay.
was it was this terrible little musical that was a spoof on Little Shop of Horrors, which like, why are you spoofing Little Shop of Horrors? It's already kind of a spoof. But it was called The Little Luncheonette of Terror, and I played four parts in it. And it was just a very silly show for high school students. But in terms of professional jobs, my very first professional job was in the musical Miss Saigon. I did a production in Vancouver at the Arts Club, which is one of the largest theater companies in Canada, and yeah, it was wild working on a musical of that size.
Wow.
Um, with helicopter landing on the stage, so much production, so many incredible, talented people. And I was in the ensemble. So there was a lot of dancing, which is, in terms of the triple threats of a musical theater performer, dancing is my lowest. So it was a lot of challenge. And again, it was 2 weeks to put together a massive musical.
Mhm.
So we worked really, really hard, but I made great friends on that show, got a lot of great experience. And I ended up working with that theater company a lot.
Wow. And how do you, when you get a role, how do you prepare for it? How do you get into character? What is your process?
Sure. So for theater in particular, you really want to be off book right away. You want to have it memorized. You want to know the play inside and out. And so the way I start is just by reading it a lot, over and over and over again. And I start just from a level of enjoyment, reading something to just enjoy reading the play. It's fun to read plays. It's fun to read scripts. Same
Yeah.
thing for, television and film. Just soak up that story as much as possible. And the more you soak up that story, the more questions you're going to have, the more why you're going to find. Like, why is he doing this? Or why is this happening in the story? And then you start to understand the structure. You start to understand the role of your character in the greater picture. Most stories come down to being a story about one person trying to accomplish something, right? Star Wars is about, Luke Skywalker trying to destroy the Death Star, right? Escaping from the moisture farm and finding his purpose, destroying the Death Star. And everybody else along the way in that is there to either help or hinder. Very utilitarian kind of look at it, but that really is what it comes down to. Every person that he's going to come across is there to help him or hinder him on that quest. And so the more you soak up the story, the more you understand what's happening in the story, the more you understand structure of story. I think that's very, very vital as well. You start to understand the actual role that you play in it. And you'll start asking why a lot. And that will, lead you into whatever research that you might need to do. If you're playing a mechanic, what do you need to learn about mechanics to really understand what your character is doing, so that when you're saying words that are, from a particular walk of life that you may not walk in, that you're saying them authentically, that they don't feel foreign, that we believe you know what you're doing. Little things like that, I think you'll find as you dig into the story more and you read it over and over and over again. And then from there, you start to be able to make choices, because you'll be answering those whys. You'll go, I think he's doing this for this reason. I think this character wants this for this reason. And that will be just naturally, will have so much of you in it, because it's still you answering that question. And I think the best performances are when, the actor and the character really come together. They're indistinguishable from each other. And that requires you to bring a lot of who you are and your personality to it.
Wow. I think the thing that you mentioned right now, being able to be yourself, even while playing the character, is something that was also mentioned in one of the previous talks that we had with an acting coach. And she said exactly the same thing. But now I'm also wondering, like, when you have, for example, when you are reading the story and you have this idea about the character, like this is probably his motivation, it is still coming from you and not from the writers or the director's shoe. So how do you compare and differentiate between those two ideas of the character, and how does that translate in on theater or even on screen? Like, how do you ensure that you're able to balance your own artistic beliefs while also balancing, the director's or the writer's artistic belief about that character?
Sure. I think it's a question that you'll come across a lot more when you're working in the theater, because you have more time.
Yeah.
When you're working with directors in theater, you might have those conversations a little bit more, particularly if you're playing, leading in principal roles. If you're doing something that doesn't line up with what they have in mind, you'll absolutely end up having those discussions in the room. Film and TV, maybe a little bit, but really that machine moves so quickly. And like when you have an audition for a TV show or film, even with theater, they're looking to see what you're going to do. The audition isn't a work in progress. They want to see, this is what you're going to bring to it.
Yeah.
And so if there's anything they want to shift along that way, they're going to try to do it as early in the process as humanly possible. Because when the cameras start rolling and you're on the set and the lights are on, you're spending money. And they trust you. That's the other thing. If someone has cast you to be in something, they trust you. They've put their trust in you, in your skill and in your talent. And so they just want you to bring that, and they don't want to have to worry about you. So you may not have those conversations a lot unless something is really, really out of whack.
Right.
Unless what you're bringing really doesn't match what they have in mind or what the story needs. And then my advice to you is be adaptable. Be adaptable. At the end of the day, you know, you're playing, your role is in a much bigger picture, right? And I think you do need to trust, all of us need to trust the people that are watching from the outside, that are watching through the screen or sitting out in the house watching. Because sometimes it feels like you're giving what's needed, and someone comes along and says, I'm really looking for this. And you're like, but that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm bringing to this. And so you need to trust them that here's what's coming out on the outside, and let's work together to sort of line up what this needs to be, because all of this is a very collaborative process, even your performance. And so I think it's really, really wise to be adaptable and to be a collaborator with your directors, writers, and producers.
Absolutely. Very useful advice. And I also want to dig into the comparison that you made between theater and visual mediums, right?
Mm-hmm.
So television. How do the two mediums actually compare to you as an actor? Like starting from, say, the auditioning process. Is the auditioning process also very different when you get the role, being on camera versus being on a stage in front of people? What is the difference? And what, as an actor, like what have you felt while experiencing both of those different kinds of mediums?
Sure. I think there's technical differences. The job you're doing is essentially the same. The technical differences really are based on understanding the medium more. When you go into a theater audition, and those are becoming back to in-person, over the pandemic, a lot of film and TV auditions went to self-tapes. I was shooting a self-tape in this very room just a few minutes ago. And so a lot of that work is sort of happening on your own. But when you're auditioning for theater, obviously the preference is to have that in the room because it's live. You would be, if you get the job, you're going to be live in front of people, right? So they want to see you live. It's about showing in that room that you can fill whatever kind of theater that you're going to be in, that you understand that medium, that you're able to use your voice correctly or in a way that, that medium requires. You can use your body correctly, all of those things are going to happen in that room and at a size and a fullness that emotionally that the theater requires. When you're doing film and television, you still need to have that emotional fullness. You need to still have all those choices. You need to still have the passion and drive, but the medium's different. I mean, if you just look at this, what we're in right now, right? We're on a close-up of me right now. If I was to start to do a soliloquy in the same way right now as I would do it in a theater audition, you'd be like, that guy is a psychopath. He's crazy. What is he doing? And it would look crazy because that's not this medium, On a stage, we've got all these sort of distractions and everything. You really have to fill a space. You can't control where the audience is, right? On screen, directors are able to control exactly what we're focused on. So you need your choices and what you're bringing to the character need to fit this box. So they're just little technical changes that happen. So I think it's important to see yourself. I think it's important to take a look at your work, to hear your voice, to get used to hearing your voice. I hear this from people all the time. I used to work in radio, so I'm very used to the sound of my own voice and that it's different recorded than how you hear it.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important you get used to the sound of your voice, you get used to what you look like on a screen, and you work like a scientist in that way. And you start to go, how do I make that work better? I shot an audition earlier this week. That wasn't great. It wasn't my best work. My schedule's been crazy. I maybe wasn't as prepared as I wanted to be. And I started to note just like my energy was kind of everywhere. My eye line was sort of everywhere in this audition. I didn't have time to kind of go back and give it the work that it needed, but I knew from looking at it that I was like, oh, these are the things I'm doing wrong. These are the things that aren't working. Why am my eyes darting all over the place? Oh, it's because I'm nervous or because I'm, this, that, or the other thing. And I don't feel bad about it. It is what it is. I like to work like a scientist and go, okay, what do I learn from that for the next time? And that's the nice thing about that is the nice thing about self tapes is you are recording your work all the time. And so you get the opportunity to examine it. But I always say examine it like a scientist because you want to feel good about your work. So you want to take that 1,000-foot view all the time. What can I do better? How can I improve? What would I do the next time? And move forward with new knowledge. But understanding the medium is key because that's the thing. You are auditioning to do different things in different mediums.
Absolutely. And something that you also emphasized on right now is auditioning, being a scientist while, looking at your tapes. I want to talk more about your auditioning process. What does that process look like for you? How do you prepare for them? How do you make sure that you stand out in the room when you're auditioning?
Sure. My auditioning process is very similar to the process I would take preparing for a show or something I already have booked. I'm going to pull in as much information as I possibly can. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read as much of it as I can get. In theater, there's almost always a script. There's almost always a script you can get, and you got to read it. You have to read it. You have to understand the context of what your audition is. That's just like step one. And then I go over the material that is needed for that audition, and I treat it like a performance. I really firmly believe an audition is exactly the same as having the job because you're going to spend more time in your life. You're going to spend more time in your life as an actor auditioning than being booked, right? So you might as well enjoy it. You might as well treat it with the same respect and reverence as you do your opening nights or as you do your, first day on set shooting something. So I bring that level to it as much as I possibly can prepare in the same way I do. Film and TV is a little different because you're usually only getting sides, which are just little slices from a script. It's pretty rare that you're really able to get access to a full script ahead of time, which it makes it kind of a fun little challenge because you're working like an investigator. You're taking a look at the evidence that you have in your sides and trying to decipher, okay, who is this? What is this character? What are they doing? What's my function in this scene? What do I need to know? What are the blanks that I now need to fill in? And how I stand out is by bringing myself to it, not trying to be a character. I don't try to think about what they want or what you think that they're going to want. I try to understand the material and I try to bring myself to that material. What do I have that's unique about this? Or what can I bring to this that's unique? Not just for the sake of being unique, but for honoring who I am, because that's the only thing that's going to set me apart from everybody else. Okay. If I'm up for a part, there are going to be dozens of other guys who kind of look like me, who are about as tall as me, who have similar resumes to me. The only thing that I have that they don't is me. What makes me unique and different. And so I want to make sure that that is at the forefront of what I'm doing in my auditions. So it's not gimmicky, so it's not inauthentic, so it doesn't look like I'm making choices for the sake of making different choices, but that it's coming from me and it has my mark on it.
Incredible. Something that I also want to talk about just out of my own curiosity is that I know you've been on TV shows like Star Trek Discovery, Murdoch Mystery. My sister was talking about that show and she was like, oh my God, I remember seeing you on it and Taken. And so can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be on a set, especially on a TV show? How do you prepare yourself for being on a set like that? I think a theater experience is something that a lot of students would have in university, but being on a set for a TV show, not like hard to say, like not everybody can have that at a university level. So that's what we want to hear from you. Tell us what it's like.
Well, first of all, my recommendation to anybody right now is to be auditioning for student films. I love doing student films. Student films are so important to do. A, because you're meeting people that are making stuff right now and are going to be making stuff in the future. B, it's a really safe space to kind of, try out your craft and to learn about their craft, to learn about what different people are doing on a set. And that's, a sort of a small microcosm of it. Then we blow it up onto something like Star Trek, which is the biggest set I've ever been on, the most intimidating set in a way, because you walk onto that set and, all of my scenes were with Michelle Yeoh, who was just nominated for an Oscar, and who I knew from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Crazy Rich Asians. And like, it was just, Sonequa Martin Green, who was the lead in the show from The Walking Dead. And it was Star Trek. I grew up watching these shows. So there's all these kinds of things that are like going to rattle you and give you nerves, especially early on. Or maybe always. That certainly wasn't the first TV show I had done, but I remember being a little nervous walking onto that set. There isn't always someone who's like going to show you around. There will be things that you're just sort of expected to know. And, getting from the trailer to the set, who you're talking to, what the first AD does, like some of those, functional things you can really, sort of learn on your own. But when you're on a set, the expectation is there that those things, that what those people do. That's, sort of like the base professionalism. But it is fun getting onto a set and enjoying it and like being like wowed by the marvel of it. Like the Star Trek set was just so massive and wild and incredible. And then remembering that it's time to work and getting back in. And like, I always give myself a moment of, wow, I feel so grateful that I get to do this. I'm so grateful that I've gotten myself here, that I've gotten this job. And now let's get to work. Now let's focus and just get back down to it, because at the end of the day, everybody there is just like you. There's just other actors. And they want from you what you want from them, right? In terms of support, in terms of being a reliable scene partner. The people who cast you want to see you do as well as you did in that audition. They want to see you bring yourself in the same way you brought yourself in the room or on the tape or whatever it is. And that's the contract you have. Mm-hmm. When you've been cast in something, that's the contract you have. So live up your contract. Yeah. Get in there, bring that great work, and be prepared, be on time. This is like, I know these are like obvious things, but I cannot tell you how vital it is. Be prepared, be on time, and be the kindest person in that room. Always. Mm-hmm. Always. People, getting jobs in this business is not a talent contest. When you book a job, it's not because you're the most talented. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. It's all kind of subjective, right? But the people that book again and again and again, the people who work with the same people again and again and again, are the people that they like to work with, that they enjoy working with. You'll get opportunities from people. You get phone calls from people. Hey, I'm doing a thing. Do you want to be in it? Because they love working with you. They know they can rely upon you. They know they can trust you. That's how you build a sustainable career. Be early, be prepared, and be the nicest person, the kindest person in the room.
Well, be early, be prepared, be the kindest person in the room. I think very valuable advice for actors and even other professionals, but I think actors definitely, yeah, for sure. Can you also, now that we were talking about, working on these big sets, working with these big production companies, something that comes to mind is the balancing act of being a creative and being an entrepreneur or a business person. How do you maintain that balance?
It's tough. It's tricky. And I mean, I don't even know that I'm the best at it sometimes. I think what is, and I'm kind of touched on in the last answer as well, that, the be early, be prepared, be the kindest person in the room. All of that stuff helps you build strong relationships. This business is like any other business. It's about relationships. That's how you thrive, by having great relationships. Not by being the best or the prettiest or the hottest or any of that kind of stuff. It's about having the best relationships. So I think like if there's something, if I could go back and give younger me advice, like business advice, it would be learn how to network, learn how to, um, try to build trust and try to build a rapport with people, and not look at casting directors and producers and decision makers. Try not to look at decision makers as like these different kinds of life forms. They're humans, and you can get relationships with them that, maybe you don't work together today or tomorrow, maybe it's years from now, maybe it's not at all. But the relationships, like honest, true, genuine relationships, are vital. And if I could go back in time, that's what I would like to understand more. I'm a very outgoing person, but like when it comes to like things like networking, I do get a little shy, I get a little social anxiety, I get a little introverted. And so I wish it was something I had started getting better at when I was younger. Um, Manage your money well. If
Yeah.
you're not good with money, find people who are and have them in your circle. That's vital. The ins and outs of taxes and stuff is always changing. So you need to understand that. You need to save for the down times, or you need to have, some kind of side hustle or whatever it is to help make ends meet when ends aren't meeting doing the thing that you love to do. Being kind to yourself on the business side of things as well when things are down, I think, is also a vital part of being a business person. um, and diversifying. If you can get into voice acting, get into voice acting. If you're a dancer, keep dancing. If you're, however you can be of use, however you see yourself as being of use in this business, try to be of use in that business, in that part of the business. But yeah, manage your money well, save. Oh God, save for the tough times. If we learned anything over the pandemic, it's like, don't take savings for granted. Um, and where you feel that you don't understand something, reach out for help to somebody who is. Sometimes it's your agent, sometimes it's your unions. If you're in the unions, like the Stage Actors Union in Canada, Canadian Actors Equity, is doing sessions right now on financial literacy, and I think that's really, really great. So you can find those things. Have a great accountant. That's my advice. That's my advice to you. And pay as much attention to that as you do your craft, maybe, because I
Mhm.
think it's just as vital.
And something that you did mention just now is also, doing side hustles and knowing that, okay, maybe I'm not able to make money out of what I want to do and what I love to do. So maybe I need to do this something else.
Mhm.
How how does a creative deal with that? What is your process uh, when it comes to dealing with the fact that the road is not linear and there are lots of obstacles on the way? And also, yeah, when it comes to rejections, even so, when you're auditioning, like
Yep.
you said, you're auditioning more than you're actually acting. uh so I mean, acting professionally. So how do you deal with rejection as an artist, and what kind of advice would you give to students who are starting out, who will potentially face rejections too? Yeah, what would you say to them also?
Okay, I'm going to start with the last half of that because I think it sort of really naturally leads to the second part, or the
Okay.
first part rather. So, first, I hope that as an artist, this took me a long time to do, but I hope you can get it faster than I did, to take the concept of rejection and banish it from your mindset. Get rid of it. Not booking something is not rejection. You just didn't fit the puzzle. It's not that you're rejected. Rejection to me has like a heavy negative connotation to it. The decision to cast somebody, I always say, breaks down into two chunks: a 20% chunk and an 80% chunk. 20% is like your preparation, how you looked on the day. Did you dress the part on the day? These are the things that are in your control that you can do something about. The 80%, which is the vast majority of the decision making, is all stuff out of your control.
Yeah.
Who's been cast in other, how tall is that person you're going to be opposite? Do you have the right eye color? What's the mood of the director on that day? All these things fall into the 80% that are outside of your control. It's not worth your energy. Honestly, it's not worth your energy. And so to me, when I don't book something and I know that I've done a great job on my 20%, I don't feel it's a rejection,
Mhm.
because the great work I did here today might give me work down the line in something else.
Right.
So it's not an accepted or rejected kind of thing. So I hope you can banish that from your mind. The sooner you're able to do that, the more you will enjoy going to auditions. I'm one of the only people I know who loves auditioning. I love to audition because I enjoy it. I don't view it as a job interview. And so I don't view when I don't book something as rejection. So there's that. Okay. That'll make you happy. That'll keep you happy in this business and stop you from going crazy. Because if you do feel like the weight of things, the weight of no's being rejections, I think it makes it harder to get your next yes. I think it's harder to continue moving forward if you're hard on yourself. Anything you can do to stay positive and optimistic and focused and moving forward, do it at all costs. Anything that makes you feel bad, anything that makes you feel less than, any moment when you might start to compare yourself to others, shut it down. Go do something nice for yourself. Don't let that stuff creep in. It will destroy you. It really, really, really will destroy you. I believe that. So, in order to stay healthy and happy and moving forward, sometimes you need cash. And that's where those side hustles come in. A lot of people end up serving. I'm serving tables. Like as soon as this session is done, I'm running to Midtown to go and serve tables tonight. Why? Because it pays the rent on this place. I also work at a fitness studio, so I have like multiple jobs that I'm doing, and I love the people that I work with. Do I love serving tables? Absolutely not. Absolutely do not love serving tables. One of the things that I struggle with right now is how much time I spend on that survival job and how tired it makes me. It makes it hard to do this some days when you're exhausted and working long hours at something that isn't moving you forward in the field you want to be in. And I think that'll be the toughest balance that you find. And, listen, some folks have like parents who are able to back them up and help see them through this. They can stay focused on that. Or you have investments, or, maybe you've got a side hustle, like a web design business or something, you know what I mean? Something that's underwriting you. And that's great. But most people don't have that. So I think it's about finding the right balance of something that's going to make sure your bills are paid and afford you a lifestyle that you want to have. You need to be happy.
Yeah.
You need to enjoy your life. This idea of like artists have to struggle and starve in order to be interesting is nonsense. This business is really, really hard. So you need to be good to yourself. So, make sure you get those bills paid. Absolutely. Make sure you get a vacation every once in a while, right? Make sure you have some fun on the weekends. But yeah, trying to like find something that will help you do all of that without breaking your back, really. Now, the other job that I work in a fitness studio. I work for Barry's, and they have a streaming platform, and I work in production there. And I love that because I do also want to work behind the camera. So that sort of scratches that itch. And it also means I get to work out there for free. So that's a nice perk. So that's kind of like a smart side job to have for an actor. I'm making a few bucks there. I'm learning things that are within this business. And I'm also getting exercise. I don't have to pay for a gym membership, So things like that you might find. There might be if you're a dancer, maybe you work at a dance studio part-time to pay a couple of bills, or, buy some groceries or whatever, and get cheap dance classes. Maybe there's a strategy in there for you for the things you need in your life, for the things that you love. I know a lot of actors that work at gyms for a few hours in the mornings just so that's a bill they don't have. And so I think that's my advice to you on a side hustle, long story long, is, yes, find something that's going to help you pay the bills, but make sure you balance it so you have enough time to do what you're here to do, to be a creator, to be a creative, to be an actor or an actress or a director or whatever the path you've chosen. Make sure you have the time and the bandwidth to continue investing in that.
Absolutely. And something that a lot of actors are doing these days is using the power of social media to build an audience. Like maybe it started
Mhm.
off as a side hustle for some people, but now it's becoming their main source of income also because they're just creating
Oh.
so much content out there. So, what are your thoughts on that? How does one, I know that you're also doing it, you're creating a short film, you have a brand on on Instagram and TikTok. So, how does one go about doing that as an actor? And what does it say about the industry, moving forward?
Here's the great thing about it. Technology, social media, our camera phones, all of this stuff have democratized your ability to not only create great content, but to build your own audience. So a few years ago, people started talking about how uh, in casting, sometimes they look at social media, they look at the number of followers people have, and it can be an element in decision making. And sure, that sounds gross, kind of sounds gross, but there's those people looking for an audience, right? And that's kind of the reason I started really focusing on social media. I was like, okay, great. I don't want that to be a barrier. I don't want to do this. Oh, I'm too good for that. And then all of a sudden it's like a negative on me. I thought, okay, well, maybe if I can build my own audience, that sounds great because, I do want to be a filmmaker. And so I love the idea that if I have my own audience, there are people that might want to see my work. And it's going well. Like I've got, over between all of my different social media networks, like 120,000 accounts following me, which is
Mhm.
really cool. And fun and exciting. So I think there's that. I think like the democratization of being able to reach audiences is great. You don't have to go through producers or theater companies and all that. You can have people that want to have a direct relationship with you and who are invested in your success. And that's wonderful. Um, so there's that. It can be a source of income. Some people are making mad cash on things like TikTok and Instagram. I make a bit of money on it, which is nice and fun, and um, it sort of stretches you in a different way to sort of understand marketing sometimes, to understand like what connects with people, what do people want to see, and so that's fun. I really love data. I love understanding data. And so I love putting something out there into the world and I'm like, I think this is funny or cute or inspiring. I'm gonna pop that out there and see what happens. And you sort of like find out what people like to comment on and what people like, or what your like really passionate followers engage with. And I love that. I think that's fun. I think it's exciting. And the fact that I can make a little bit of money doing that is great. And I hope to continue growing that part of my business because that's not going anywhere. And I think I think you can accelerate your success. I really do think you can accelerate your success by starting to build your own brand, building your own audience, having people invested in you, and also kind of stretching these creative muscles. Like you can create you can create a 3-minute film. That's a short film. Like 3-minute films get into festivals. You can make a 3-minute film that you're going to distribute on TikTok. That can be part of your reel. That can be on your website. That can be something that when someone goes, oh, I want to look this person up, they find your work. That's what it comes down to, right? That's like really for me, it started as a creative outlet. I loved being on Instagram and learning about photography. Um, and now I'm working on my first short film that I will record on this technology, that I'll be able to distribute on this technology. 15 years ago, I would need thousands and thousands of dollars, and I don't even know how we would distribute, you know? So that's what's great about all of it. And yeah, there's a lot to be said about how healthy are these platforms and all of that. Sure, I think we'll all learn more about that and using them responsibly along the way. But the benefit of them is it's a platform that you can have a direct relationship with an audience on your terms. And that's where you can do the work that you really, really, truly want to do that maybe people aren't casting you in.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. something else that I wanted to ask you, which I should have done earlier when you're talking about your acting experiences, but I'm still going to ask you right now, is what has been your most memorable acting experience? It could be on the set or even while auditioning, something that you cherish, even to this day.
Okay, this is such an easy answer for me. When I booked Star Trek, I was over the moon. I was so excited. And then at my first costume fitting, you walk and you're seeing all the sketches and everything, all like the sort of designs of the costumes that they're working on in the shop at that time, and you're starting to see other costume pieces come together, and it was really cool. And then they handed me sort of, I'm like the base of my costume, and okay, go around the corner, get into that, and it's really really tight spacesuit, right? Just squeeze into it, come out, and then I'm standing in, you're in the mirrors as they're, pinning things and making marks, things that they want to adjust on the costume for you. And there I was looking at myself in a costume from Star Trek.
Wow.
And I just like, I kind of went away, like I left the building. It was such a surreal moment. And they were asking me questions that I wasn't answering because I was just like, I was comatose, my brain down the street, singing and dancing and being so excited. And I went, I'm so sorry. I'm kind of like, I think I'm just like having a little moment here. And they're like, that's okay. That's okay. And they're like, we're actually waiting to see if you're going to ask the question. It's a question that everybody asks. And I thought about it for a second. I realized, of course, all the guys that are going to come in here and be on Star Trek are all going to say, do I get to use a phaser? And that was the question. That's what everybody asked. But I loved that. I really, really loved that moment of, I think that was the moment like it really sunk in that I was going to get to play a role in a universe that has such an incredible history, that has such an important, it holds an important place in our culture. Today we're talking so much about diversity and representation on screen. Star Trek was a pioneering show for that. We saw people of color from day one in that universe. It wasn't just white people on that set. I think it was like one of the first like interracial kisses happened on Star Trek. I could be wrong about that. Am I remembering that wrong? I hope I'm not remembering that wrong. But it was really groundbreaking for that. And then Star Trek Discovery has carried that on with like, the first transgender characters, queer storylines, queer characters who are in love. And I was so happy to be a part of that and to exist in that universe, even if it's just a small part, but that universe will carry on. Like that little bit of culture will carry on forever. That will be around so much longer than I ever will be. And that meant a lot to me.
Wow.
And that's what I realized in that moment,
Absolutely. Being a part of a legacy like that and being able to contribute to it is incredible. I think definitely every artist's dream come true. So I can imagine that. One last question before we wrap it up. What advice would you give to everyone who's starting out in the industry? It's just some words of wisdom.
Okay, this is easy. You got to be good to yourself. This is a tough job. This is a very tough business, and there are going to be a lot of hard days. So you need to be kind to yourself. You need to be your own cheerleader. You need to surround yourself with people who will help you feel great all the time. I don't mean in a toxic way. I mean people that are there to support you, genuinely support you. People that you can trust when you go, I'm working on this thing. I need your input. I need an outside eye. People that speak the same language as you. I imagine your training at Dartmouth is amazing. But one of the greatest assets that you're going to have when you leave school are the people you're in school with right now, because you share a vocabulary now. You've gone through the same training together. Not all training is the same. So you have a vocabulary, a shorthand with the people around you right now. And I hope that the colleagues that you'll be exiting school with, that you'll all be able to be there for each other and trust each other and really support each other, because that's vital. You're going to want people who you're not feeling a weird competitiveness with. You want people that will know when your ego fires and who can talk you, talk you into like a good constructive place, if that makes sense. And like I said before, in terms of the auditioning, like anything that makes you feel smaller or less than, build a wall around that. I remember somebody saying, or people say all the time, like, oh, if you read reviews, which I do, I'm a total review reader. If you read reviews and you believe the good ones, you have to believe the bad ones. Nope, no, you do not. Take in anything that makes you feel great and helps move you forward. Block out anything that does otherwise. You need to be confident. You need to be confident. You need to be able to bring who you really are to any role and to any work that you're doing. Oh, I meant to actually get this quote together for this moment because I knew we'd have this discussion. And I'm kicking myself for not doing it. So I'm going to give you a little homework. If you want the best possible advice, there is an episode of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and he is just recently, he has a discussion with John Lithgow about, there's like a quote, like a ballet teacher working with a ballerina, and okay, lift your leg. Okay, now do it beautifully. And there's a whole discussion around beauty. And I really wish I had his whole quote to read to you because it's incredibly elegant and really, really beautiful and profound. And it moved me so deeply that what we do here, that what you do as an actor, when you're stepping out to share who you are, to share something of your heart out there in the world, is such an amazing act of beauty. Everything in society, everything in the world tells us to fit in and conform and to blend in. And all of us as artists, it doesn't matter what medium you're working in or whatever, we go against that. We stand out and try to be as beautiful as the world we live in. And God, when I heard him talk about this, I just thought, oh my gosh, yes. Like even going out and doing work, even if it's not your best work, but just stepping out and putting yourself out there is such an amazing, wonderful gift to the world. I hope you continue doing it. That's why I think you need to feel great about who you are all the time. Never stop learning. Never stop learning. You'll never know everything, and don't ever think you could. I think if you carry those little bits of advice from me, I think that, nothing will guarantee you a long, amazing, illustrious career, but I think those things will guarantee you happiness because you'll be proud of the work you're doing all the time. And that is, to me, the most important thing when I get out of an audition or a show or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if other people liked it. If I'm proud of the work that I did, if I can really, really, truly say to myself, yeah, I put myself into that. I was beautiful today, and I'm proud of that. So I hope you can do that too.
That was very profound, amazing. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
It's Stephen Colbert. It's all Stephen Colbert. I stole it all from him.
Also, thank you to you and Stephen. But yeah, amazing advice, and also love listening to your career journey. And getting advice on how to audition, how to be in front of a camera, how to cultivate relationships in this industry. So it was so amazing to hear from you. Thank you so much for being with us and for doing this. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. And I wish you all success. It's really, really, truly an honor to be here and share a little bit of my journey with you guys today.
Thank you. So.